everyone, welcome to Awesome Life TV. Today I'm here with Karen Christensen, and we just had the best pre-conversation to this conversation, so I am so excited for this interview. Karen, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, this is it's so funny that we get to do this just spontaneously
Yes.
with new people that we don't know that well, but we think we know that well because I've been following you for so long. It's such a joy. I'm so grateful. So
Yeah. Awesome. So let's start with you sharing just a little bit more about yourself and what you do and where people can find you.
Yeah. So you can go to dreamcatchersdistrict.com, and you can find me, of course, in all the social media rabbit holes that exist as well. But as I was sharing with you before, this is really Dreamcatchers District, my most recent creative baby, and she just launched about this time last summer. So she's been just my absolute joy and focus, but really only for this past year. And she brings together, I love that I call her she.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous, but I do. She brings together performers, content creators, entrepreneurs, thought leaders. They tend to be very progressive, kind of rule breakers, spiritually curious, all embracing. And it's people that are coming together either because they're aspiring to do something great and bold, and they're in sort of the catalyst launch of that, but they don't really know what to do or how to do. They're feeling overwhelmed. They're not focused. Sometimes they're riddled with a lot of self-doubt and insecurity. Or they're kind of the extreme opposite. They're actually killing it and they're thriving. And they're in a place that I've been in before, which is they've gotten behind the Emerald City, and they've achieved all the sort of bells and whistles of press or money or praise, and it's not enough. Something's happened. The bottom is kind of fallen out, and they don't really have the drive or the determination or the enthusiasm to keep going.
Yeah.
And maybe they feel guilty because they're thinking like, what is wrong with me? This is everything I ever wanted. Why am I not happy?
Yeah.
Why do I feel so exhausted? So those two camps of people, it's been really great and really empowering for me to come together through live events or one-on-one coaching to figure out like, what is it that's getting us off course, and how can we course correct, but not just with strategies or systems or structures, although that's a huge part of it, right? Having daily rituals that help you have more focus and follow through and stamina and resiliency, of course. But also, how can I just be in better attunement and alignment and feel more on my purpose, leveraging my strengths that come easily so that I don't feel like I'm swimming upstream all the time, but I feel like I'm more in flow. And then what are those stories, those habitual negative thought pattern loops that keep kind of pulling me away? And how can I rewire, those pathways? So it's all of those things. It's a lot of masculine and feminine. It's a lot of creativity, but also strategy. So the right and the left brains.
Yeah.
And we just have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's been really great. And it's what I probably needed, like we create what we need.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Love it. Can't wait to talk more about it because I love just the blending of the masculine and the feminine and just nerding out on the brain stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But let's start with how I start every interview. I would love for you to talk about a time in your life where you had to take ownership, you had to take personal responsibility, and share a little bit of the backstory and kind of what that situation looked like.
Well, first of all, I would say the time in my life is adorable because I feel like it's times, right? I could tell you about something last week, right? So that taking ownership and responsibility piece is like a muscle that's always having to get worked. Maybe the bounce back times are better now. There's more tools in the garage, but I don't know that you ever like finish.
No.
I will say that by the time I was 23, I'm much older and wiser now. But by the time I was 23, I had endured like my fair share of trauma and drama and crazy town. And I think it was a series of things that kept me not able to get out of my own way lots of times. But also that kept me attracting the same personality type in a myriad of places, whether it was my agent or my manager. When I was 19, I moved from a small town in New Hampshire. I came out here, I became an actress, and I had all the very cliche delusions and fantasies about what that would be. It was a real career rescue fantasy that I had. I didn't know it at the time, of course, but that was my white horse of choice. You know, at 19, it was, well, if I can just get away from everything that I've ever known, and I can start over, and I can get the agent and get the manager and get the auditions and then get on the movie set and, you know, be the right weight and be the cute, quirky girl next door and get the right guy, then all of my stuff will just fall away. My life can start. And of course, that's never how it works out, right? And then, of course, I had fantasy rescues with all kinds of men. And unfortunately, after a series of just falling in love over and over and over and over again, and every guy was the guy, I chose to move in with the wrong guy. And for 18 months, I was in a very bad situation. And I knew it from day one. I actually knew it 2 weeks into the relationship. A real red flag came up where probably someone with more self-esteem and self-efficacy would have said, like, whoa, did that just happen? And would have backed away. Instead, I believed this sort of cascade of verbal attacks that happened from this guy to me in public, which should have been that red flag. I believed them to be true. And 3 weeks later, I moved in with him. And on the first night, the violence started. So getting out of that situation of 18 months of really being lost and isolated and stuck was not easy. But thankfully, you know, some interventions happened, and through therapy and through working with coaches and the 12-step community, I was able to redirect and realize, oh, I had these total romantic notions that I was going to get saved. And then the people and the careers that I went looking for those rescues in were actually very marginalizing, very trivializing, sexualizing, and they were just steeping me in more and more and more shame and guilt and self-doubt. And it was a hard thing to learn. It was a real hard lesson to learn. But I'm so blessed that it happened at 23. And that I was able to find those lily pads of support and safeguarding, you know, my next steps, you know, and who I attracted into my life from there forward was very different. I very much learned discernment, you know, and maybe that's something that not everyone has to learn. Maybe people who grow up in a different way or have a innate, you know, stronger sense of self, they don't have to learn that lesson. I absolutely had to be on my knees to learn my worth and my value.
And talk to us a little bit about what that, like, what kind of started that transition to either finding the support, because a lot of the times, and I'm guilty of this too, when we tell stories where like everything sucked and then like one day we turned a corner and it's like,
you were talking about this just before.
And I know for me, I'm always like, but how, like, what actually happened, you know, and like, what did it feel like? And how did you really start to take that ownership and start to find your self-worth again from that place?
I think it's such an important question, particularly in the arena that you and I are playing in right now. I think there's a real disservice when we don't pull the curtain back and share all the good, the bad, and the ugly, and how complex it can be and how long it can take. Because it certainly isn't like, I was lost and then I was found, you know? And that's kind of what gets pitched. That's sort of the marketing story arc, because it's very easy to sell. You know, at 23, I was a mess, and now I'm fabulous. And there's a lot that goes, you know, behind the scenes. I mean, I've been lucky and fortunate for whatever reason that I was born a woman of some privilege, not in the sense of what we would maybe think of as privileged. I was born total middle class, even sometimes struggling family, single parent home. But just being born a white woman, you come with some unearned privileges.
Yeah.
I had education and resource, and obviously could have access to healthcare and things that I needed. And so I was able to get into counseling. I was able to take advantage of the 12-step meetings. Going to those CODA meetings was so imperative and valuable, because I learned, and I didn't need to stay there for forever, although I'm sure there are times when I will dip back into those meetings. And the principles and the practices have never left me.
Yeah.
Just like I didn't do therapy for forever, but there are times when I'll get a little off balance and something will feel triggering, and those old people-pleasing ways will come up, or those old desires of like, can someone just come in and fix this? Like, I just want to be belly up and I want someone to take care of this.
Yeah.
When that comes up, I go back to the toolkit of therapy, or I go back to a 12-step meeting. Or if I'm feeling like I don't have a voice, there are certain personalities that for me are difficult, and I feel nervous or triggered, and I don't have a clear period at the end of my sentence because I don't feel like I'm allowed that. There are certain personalities that for whatever reason, they remind me of someone else, and I can get a little off kilter. So going back to those practices has been really invaluable. But I think it's a combo. One of the things that I sometimes struggle with in the coaching community, or in the therapy community, or in the 12-step community, is that we tend to think like, oh, this is the answer. It's this camp over here that's going to fix you. And actually, I tend to believe it's a recipe of all of it.
Yes.
So with the Dreamcatchers community, we're very clear that it's changing our physiology. It's getting back into the body and having a somatic experience. At the same time that it's being mindful of our minds through meditation, through limiting core beliefs getting reframed and restructured. At the same time that it's, what are you doing day to day, hour to hour? We do become our habits or our rituals, whether they're conscious or not. So it's the sweet spot of those three things. Mm-hmm. And also, I've been really aware as an artist how important the five senses are, and getting back to pleasure and joy and being steeped in this moment. Yeah. So sometimes even with meditation, people think like, oh, you got to go sit in the lotus position and say your kumbaya on a piece for an hour. And actually, meditation can be an active practice that happens on demand as you need it all the time.
Yeah.
And it can just be a noticing of all the beauty that is around us. And when you connect to the five senses and you reintegrate with your body, that helps to ground us too.
Yeah.
So I think it was a myriad of things happening in combination, and not stopping those practices when I felt better. Yeah. Not stopping those practices when all of a sudden I married an incredible guy who treats me wonderfully, and we've worked together on films, and we've traveled the world together. We're best friends. We just bought our first house, but we're still doing the work.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, oh, eyes on the prize, everything's cooked and good. I don't have to, look at that anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I think you touched on two super important things. So yeah, absolutely. The number one thing I always come back to with my clients and my work, and even myself, is like, the work never ends. You don't do the practice one time and like, bam, everything's fixed. And even if that happens, like, you have to maintain that. So that is so huge and such a big part of taking ownership, but also recognizing that even if something gets cleared, or even if something gets healed, that doesn't necessarily mean that it won't come back.
Oh, yeah.
Or that it's not going to manifest in another way. And, having been through what you've been through, and having been through what I've been through, just seeing how you can go periods of time being just like, totally okay, everything's good, I'm at peace with this, and then just bam, knocked on your ass again. And so recognizing that doesn't mean that whatever you did before didn't work, or that something's wrong with you, or that you're broken, but like, hey, this is just another layer. This is just another piece that's coming up that I need to work with.
And I think too, as I'm hearing you share, and I can't imagine to know what that experience has really been like for you, but I certainly know the feeling of feeling like a feeling was going to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
That it was literally going to take me out. And the truth is nobody's ever died from a feeling.
Mm-mm.
Right? So we maybe die from overeating or over drinking or having too many relationships or overworking, but we don't actually die from the feeling.
Yeah.
So being able to be tremendously patient and gentle and compassionate with ourselves and with others, and to embrace, not even just accept, but to embrace that that is the full embodiment of this human experience. And to have the depths of joy that we desire,
Mm-hmm.
you have to know the depths of real darkness.
Yeah.
And that I know for myself what I needed to learn over and over and over and over again was that running to stand still is not an option. That trying to outsmart grief,
Oh my goodness.
not an option.
Nope.
She will come back and just smack you over the head again.
Yeah.
It might be a different person, a different dynamic, a different career struggle or challenge, but that those cycles will keep coming back, and that it is a new layer of understanding. So I wonder too if it's an experience of, getting curious when it comes up, when those feelings bubble up that feel so intolerable.
Yeah.
Whether it's anxiety or grief or frustration or jealousy or confusion, doubt, but just getting really curious about them and being able to kind of depersonalize them, know that they are a universal experience felt by everyone. They are felt by the people that you most emulate and admire and put on the highest pedestal. That person too has felt exactly how you're feeling.
Yeah. And I think what's so important, at least what was super important for me, was I was fiercely protective of my grieving process. And I think having been through, all the different experiences I've had that were hard and struggle and all of that, and learning all these tools that we've learned through the work that we do, is I knew I was equipped to get through it. But I also knew that I needed to sit in it. And we talked about this a little bit before, where it's like, yeah, obviously, I want to get to the good from this. I want to learn the lesson. I want to see the gifts. I want to see the light again. I want to be happier because I was so far in the darkness. But for right now, I need to be in a ball on the kitchen floor about to pass out because I'm crying so hard. And that's okay.
All right.
And I had so many people where I felt like I had to just be like, I know that you are trying to make me feel better. And a lot of the times it's for them, they want to see you feel better so that they don't have to worry and they don't have to be scared and they don't have to hurt. And that's normal and that's beautiful and that's love. But it's also like, I need to be in this right now and I need to be broken and I need you to not try to put me back together, because I know, and I know you know this too, that sometimes we have to go through that and we have to feel it and we have to process it. Or all we're doing is tucking it aside and it's just going to come up later and it's going to be so much worse than it was before. And a quote that I really love by Jordan Gray goes something like, anytime you ignore an emotion, it goes down to the basement to lift weights. And it's so true.
Oh, that just gave me whoa,
Yeah.
what a visual. And again, that circles back. God, that really gave me chills. I so get it. It really circles back to what we were sharing before our call here and even just a minute ago about it really has to be that we are not trying to have these different isolated camps of answers. That coaching has its place and therapy has its place and retreats and workshops and live events have their place and strategies and structures and systems have their place and meditation and 12-step. But that it really is the recipe of all of it. And that there are seasons in life. There are times, Chris Carr said it beautifully, and I can't remember where. I think she was doing maybe her yearly conference with Gabby Bernstein. But she said of herself, I'm in kind of a creative winter. And I thought it was so important that she made that distinction.
Yeah.
Because even if we were to transition the conversation away from grief and personal things that we're dealing with, and we were to look at even just how we work as content creators and how we put ourselves out in the world and what we're producing, right? Mm-hmm. There are times where it's more of a creative winter. And in this culture of compare and despair and social media rabbit holes, like I called them at the beginning, it can be so dangerous.
Yeah.
And being able to take a step back and unplug from all of that noise and to not feel threatened or less than if you're not in that peak performance, killing it, high producing season. Mm-hmm. So again, like with Dreamcatchers, it's teaching and showing the value of all different of these practices and embodying them simultaneously, but also recognizing like right now I need to prioritize being a peak performer because maybe my natural resting spot or my habit has been actually underperforming.
Yeah.
Maybe my habit has been like I'm going and taking a bath and journaling and lighting candles and pulling miracle cards. And so I need to practice changing my state and redirecting and being able to harness my thoughts and being able to on demand call upon a different physiology, a different psychology, and a different strategy. Or maybe if you're a type A person and you've been going and hustling and creating and producing and pushing and making shit happen, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
You need to give yourself also the permission to unplug and be in that downtime and allow yourself to be in a place of curiosity and receiving and not having that pressure of what am I doing, what am I creating, what am I making. And so knowing when one is appropriate and also how can they, because again, it's always and also, it's not either or, but it's and also how can they all kind of live simultaneously, but not in this sort of mythical idea of balance where everything is exactly, teetering at the same level and at the same time and in perfect rhythm, because it's not life.
No.
Right? We have seasons and we have chapters and we have priorities and with coaching, it's a perfect example. You choose a topic, a focus, and that's what we really dive deeply into. We don't change the entire life. Yeah. I think people get overwhelmed because they go, oh my God, I don't know what my life purpose is. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Everything's wrong. And they are so desperate and panicked and they need this like massive overhaul. So they go and buy a program or they want to get the next diet or they think if they get the guy or when I buy the house or when I redo the kitchen, whatever it is. But these are all very external ways of trying to reconcile an internal angst that can just happen in life.
And I think it's so important, and this comes back to like, yes, we always need to be doing the work. We need to remember that it's not a one-time thing, but not beating yourself up when you forget.
So much compassion.
And as coaches, people look at us and they're like, well, you must have it all figured out because you're the one. And it's like, I mean, I just realized the other day, it's been like a month since I've gone for a run. I can't remember the last time I wrote in my journal. And instead of being like, I suck, I'm a failure, I'm a hypocrite, I'm just like, all right, let's like shift things. Let's shift our focus and our priority because I need to take care of myself. And so if you go into that space of like, you're so stupid and I can't believe you don't even practice what you preach, like that doesn't serve anyone.
No.
And just being gentle with yourself.
That inner critic gets so loud for all of us at different times. And that inner critic loves to be perfectionistic and loves to find all of the evidence for why you're a failure, you're a fraud, you're not good enough, it's all been done already, if it hasn't worked in the past, why would it work now? And I know her. I mean, she sits on my shoulder like on the daily if I let her.
Yeah.
And having practices where you can talk her down and back from the ledge and say, I totally hear you. I get it. Like you are terrified right now and you're scared and you don't know where to start. And I hear you. But you know what? Can we just table that for like a blank
Yeah.
I think I have this, and maybe I'm not going to do it right, and maybe it's not going to be good enough for what I and you, this perfectionist creature, expect of us.
Yeah.
But it might be my good enough is 3 times better than what somebody else is maybe shipping, as Seth Golden talks about. So I don't want to stop the flow. I just want to get what I can out there. And I think it was you or maybe someone in one of your episodes here that was talking about, it's not actually about you. And so when we take the focus off of I'm not good enough and I can't do it and it's all been done already and I'm not special, and we change the lens to remembering like, oh, we're all in process. We're all on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
No one has it figured out. Not the celebrities who
Yep.
I idolize, not the people online who I'm comparing myself with.
Yep.
Like, we are all on different legs of different journeys. And to just be in a place where we're okay with what's, like as Byron Katie says, like being really steeped in gratitude for what is, in juxtaposition, again, this is that and also, in juxtaposition for all that we desire and are aspiring to, that both those things can exist, sort of like a slingshot. You got to come back and be steeped in the gratitude for what you have right now, even as complex or messy as it might be, so that you can slingshot forward into this vision and into this deeper, broader, bolder desire.
Yeah. Yeah, and I talk about that all the time. I'm so big on that, and that's what I love about you too, is we're both willing to be like, I'm not perfect. The second that I feel like a client is putting me up on a pedestal, I'm like, let me show you the reality.
It's a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure, and that's where all those imposter syndromes come from. The feeling of like, oh God, I've got to like act with this persona. And I know for myself, one of the things that was such a desire in my life was to feel connection and community in like 3D form, right? Because I had spent a lot of time online and with my photography business that I had several years ago, which was wonderful and it was successful and it was fun. But, after a handful of years, I was like, wow, I am like on a computer all the time and I'm behind a camera all the time. And actually, I just want to like hug people and I want to dance and I want to make people laugh and I want to feel intimately connected in live form. And so that's where Dreamcatchers was kind of born. It was like out of a craving that I had to get unplugged and to feel booted and using the senses and music and comedy and dance. And then let's talk about some fun, cool stuff that we can learn and incorporate. But when I think about why that also started, it was like, I just have to get real. I have to be around people that vulnerability is like a necessary access point for all of us. Because it diffuses all the pretension and it allows everybody to just like shoot the shit and connect and get real. And that to me is take away like any of the praise or the money, that's the goods. Like I can feel like, oh, I came out of that event or that group or that coaching experience and I'm actually enlivened and I have more energy than I did going in. Like done. That's it. That's the reward.
Yeah. And it's not easy. It's like anything else. I get the sense from some of the responses I get to my blog posts that I make it look easy, but it's not. It's scary.
It is a lot of work, right?
It's
I
scary.
imagine you're doing very daily, disciplined, structured work time periods. And I don't know what some of your systems are, but you can't be at the level of organization and success without having to put in some of the time on things that you don't care about or you don't want to do. And I think there's sort of this myth that like, oh, we outsource everything and I'm like sitting by a pool with my laptop. And it's just not true, right? Like it takes a lot of discernment. It takes a lot of discipline. And honestly, for me, thinking about the whole topic of this thing of like, where did you take responsibility? When did the shift happen? The shift really happens ongoing every time I commit. Every time I'm not half in and half out. That half in, half out BS is like a seesaw of crazy town. And so the more that you can create structure. So like I batch certain days, I do certain work on certain days. I have really hard ins and hard outs. So I bookend my day. So I have to get out and go to the gym.
Yeah.
I have to go see someone for lunch. I have to do a Skype call at this time. Those things actually give me more freedom and give me more peace.
Yeah.
Because they're focusing my efforts.
Totally. Absolutely. So let's shift gears a little bit right before we wrap up. I would love for you to share more about your offering and where people can find out more, how they can sign up, all that fun stuff.
Well, you can definitely go to dreamcatchersdistrict.com. And there you can jump on the email list. And what that will do is it gets you, there's going to be a 40-day fear fast that's coming up in the next few months. I'm not sure when this will be exactly. And that's totally free. And that will be something that invokes a lot of daily consideration and thought, but it's not time consuming. It's just a quick reboot and practice that you can do, and you can have some community around, so you can get access to that. And also, you know, I do live events. I just did one at South by Southwest in Austin, which was a total blast.
Yeah.
And I'm in Venice Beach. I just moved, like I said, my husband and I just bought our first house in Claremont, California. So they'll be there as well. And those really are to kind of reboot the whole system. So we come and we shake out all the stale, stuck energy. And we do that through music and through dance and through comedy. And then we also will have some sort of transformational, you know, lecture or panel discussion. And we can have Q&As and really have a nice rapport with people.
Yeah.
And feel really safe and really held. But you also don't leave the way that you came. You know, you leave feeling, oh, wow, there's a shift in this. And the last thing I would say is I'm really looking forward to doing some retreat weekends coming up and some workshops. So a lot of it is offline.
Yeah, good.
That's kind of
in-person hugs.
Kind of by design.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing so much of your story and yourself. It's just such a beautiful person and soul, and I'm just so honored to have had you here.
You too, my love. Thank you so much. And everybody just... You know, the journey is for all of us, and it is continuous.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, honey. See you soon.